Hey everybody, coming at you live from out in my shop. Now, December is a very busy time of year for me. It's the busiest month, and there's really no time to do anything. And this December has been very busy, and I got a lot of projects going, a lot of things I want to do on video. I got some shelters, and I got a really cool fire reflector I'm building, and nothing's ready. Not only is it not ready, I don't have time to get out. So I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about a few things that I've wanted to talk about in the past but haven't had time. Um, that would be stropping knives. Okay, stropping and honing, polishing, sharpening, whatever. I'm going to go over a few options and go over some of the things that I do because I've been asked about this in the past. And I did a couple of videos in the past on sharpening, but I didn't get real in-depth on stropping. And stropping is very extremely misunderstood. And the misunderstanding about it is stropping is not a replacement for sharpening. Stropping makes a good edge better. Okay, or if you don't let your knife get too dull, it'll help maintain your edge. Okay, now a lot of my knives, I just don't let them get that dull, and so I maintain them by stropping. My machetes, I don't hardly ever strop them because when you want to get down on a microscopic level, a stropped edge is smoother, and with a knife that's good because knives are for cutting and slicing, but a machete is for chopping. So with a machete, I just sharpen it. I don't strop it. Now one of them I do strop, but it's just a certain section, and we'll get into that throughout the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some odds and ends, some options, and show you a few things and say a few things, and hopefully you'll pick something up from this video, because I've actually talked to a lot of people that they said that they've sharpened the blade, and then when they got done stropping, they made the blade dull. And I'll try to explain how I think that happens. Now, before I get real deep into the stropping part of things, I'm going to talk about the sharpening part of things for just a minute. Now, there's plenty of videos out there on sharpening, and I've done some stuff on sharpening in the past. For general purpose sharpening, I just use what's called a carborundum stone, and I leave it soaking in oil. Alright. Now, that's for when things are really dull, or that's like for machetes. Now, and then I have another little container here that I have smaller stones, Arkansas stones and things, with oil in them too. Now, when it comes to like a water stone, the water stones, they use water. You put water on them. You don't put oil on them. Now, when you put water on these things, try your best to use distilled water, because regular tap water, you know, these things are so fine. Like this is a 600 grit, 1000 grit. The lime and calcium deposits can clog these stones up, so try to use distilled water in those things when you can. So now stropping, when you're stropping, what you want to use is a piece of leather. Alright. Now the old days when barbers would shave people, between each shave they would use a dry piece of leather. But for the practical purposes of a bushcrafter or a survivalist or a outdoor camper type of guy, you're going to want to use some sort of a media on your leather. And there's several different options. The best thing to use, I think, is these, they're meant for buffing wheels. And it's like there's a red rouge and a white jeweler's rouge and then a black oxide. That would be for some serious stropping. But anyway, I usually stick with this. And what it is it's a very fine abrasive. Okay, now I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, I usually do that on one side. Alright, and then when that starts getting clogged up, then I can take some sandpaper. This is sandpaper attached to a little puffy pad. You can clean your strop a little bit like this. You can see you get some of the stuff off. Or, of course, you can use a coarser grit if it's really clogged up and clean it up. Now the other side of my pad, now see I was almost down to leather that way. Now the other side of my pad, I put a polishing compound on it. Now a lot of people will attach these things to boards, but mine I just use it so that I can flip it over each time. Now on this other side you can use, if you want to, you could use like a chrome polish, or you could use here's a Brasso chrome type metal cleaner. But I like either semi-chrome polish or wing oil, all metal polish. That's some good stuff. And I'll show you in a minute how that works. Now some of the other things that you can do is you could start out with a piece of ceramic. Ceramic is in between a stone and a strop to give you that medium sharpening, the medium, the middle step of it. I have pieces of leather right here I cut off a boot. On the other side, they are glued to a heavy piece of Trizac. And if you can see right there the way I'm holding it up, Trizac is a man-made medium. It's very, very, very hard to find in small amounts. It's usually bought in bulk quantities. But those are glued to the back of some leather. Now, another thing that you can do is you can just put some sandpaper on a board, but that's not really like stropping in my opinion, unless it's an ultra fine. Unless it's like I don't know, 1,000 or 2,000 grit maybe. But this is more reserved for axes and machetes. But I just wanted to say that's an option too. A lot of you have probably seen that. Now another thing a lot of people don't know about is that you can take a piece of hardwood flooring and you can smear some polish on it and you can strop with it. And when you're dealing with hardwood, it's got to be hard, and when you're dealing with the leather, it's got to be a hard leather. You don't want a soft leather, and I'll explain why in a little while. Some people will strop on paper or cardboard. Now if you're doing that, you want it to be some thin paper, like this tea box. See, real thin paper. Because if you use corrugated cardboard, it can flex if you put too much pressure on it. And that flexing, I'm going to make a little drawing here in a minute to show you why that's bad. Let's go ahead and get that drawing out of the way now. So this is the surface of your strop. Alright, I'm going to draw a big line right here. A big line right here. And a line. I'm not going to draw the next line. Alright, now you got a nice hard surface right here. I think I can get a better marker than this. This is a better marker. Now let's say that this is the edge of the knife. Alright, that's the edge of the knife. Now you want a nice flat surface touching it. Okay. Now if that knife, if you hold it up at too much of an angle, like that, and you're dragging across this edge right here, then what's going to happen is you're going to curl the edge up right here. Alright. Now the other thing is if you put too much pressure on a strop, let's draw this knife again. Even if you had the right pressure on it, that's kind of an exaggerated view, but if you had a real soft cardboard or a soft leather, anything soft that you're going to strop with, or if you're using a belt hanging from a tree, which some people do, you don't want to put too much pressure on it, because as this bends, you're actually going to curl up a minute edge, and you're actually going to make it worse. So this at the top is what you want. You want a nice flat surface right here. Good hard surface. Alright. Now I hope that makes sense. I probably should have drawn this ahead of time, but that's what it should look like. Alright, makes sense? So let's take a look at one of my, in general, just how I would strop something, okay? So let's take a knife here. Alright, let's take a knife. Now like I said, people that know me, they know that the majority of my knives are machetes and knives attached. So I've got one slicer and one chopper, okay? That's why I'm not real worried about stropping my machetes. So generally what I do is I get this big heavy piece of leather here, alright? What I do is I'll strap it down to the table. I don't have it attached to wood because I use both sides. Alright, so let's attach this down. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of this, let's try white rouge. And what you want to do is you want to rub it until you feel this block sliding across it. Alright, now let's see. Let's take this. Where's my knife? Here it is. Alright. Now let's see how sharp this knife is to begin with. Well, okay, no, that's not a good example. let's take this knife over. Here you go, right here. All right, Bushcraft Black. All right, let me get a piece of paper. Now, let me hold this up. And I'm going to show you another trick in a minute. But for most general purposes, this is how you'll do it. Okay, that's not doing that great. It's kind of tearing the paper. It sliced through one time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the knife. And if you can see what I'm doing with it, is I'm taking the knife and I'm going to rock the knife until it just touches, until I feel it just touch that scandy bevel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag it at an angle, just like that. Alright. Now normally on a sharp knife, it normally only takes about 10 or 15, maybe 20 strops. I had heard on a video recently someone saying that it took about, for every 10 strokes on a stone, you got to have 100 strokes on a strop. I don't believe in that. Evidently, they must be using the strop dry. Alright, I don't know. I didn't count the strokes on that. So let's see how this does. Much better. That's much better. Okay, now see, that didn't take too much. Alright, now that is stropping with that, the white rouge. Now, if you want to get even more aggressive, you can use red rouge. Now, people frown on using red rouge because it's so much more abrasive, but I don't have no problem with it. I use that. Now, that's stropping. Okay, now polishing, okay, is where you are literally trying to put a mirror finish on your knife. And I've worked on this one off and on. This is my Condor Woodlaw. I'm trying to make it real shiny. Now the way you would do is like I said, you could probably use chrome polish if you wanted to. Matter of fact, you could use toothpaste in a pinch. But I like this metal polish right here. And so what I will do with it is I will put just a little dab on the blade. And you'll notice I'm pushing away from it. On this side, I'm pulling away from it. And then rub a little bit on here. Now this is one of those examples. This is not stropping to me, in my opinion. To me, this is polishing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this up. Now, like I say, I'm rocking it until I can feel that scandy grind. And then I'm going to pull it across it just like that. Now, I'm feeling something in there. I think I'm feeling a piece of that abrasive that has dried from last time. Now, you could do this very, very fast, but if you do, you may lose your angle. I'm trying to maintain that angle right there. If you've got a good touch, a very good touch, you could take it and just do it like this for a while. But sometimes you'll roll an edge while you're doing that. But that right there, that will polish that edge up like you just wouldn't believe. Another thing you can do is pull it towards you. Now, a careful thing is that when you're coming towards the end of a stroke, you want to be careful and don't lift up towards you. Because if I'm lifting up towards me like this, you tend to roll that edge. So what I do is I pull towards me and off the strop. In other words, in this direction of the knife, you want to pull away this way. That's how I do it. Alright? So let me take that blue rag right there. And see, if I do that enough, you can kind of see where I've been working on that to get a mirror finish with it. And like I said, I don't let my knives get that dull. Alright, piece of hardwood flooring. Okay. So what you want to do with it is you want to set it down. Alright, let's clamp this in. Now I don't know if these grooves in it help or not. I haven't wore these down much. So I'm just going to leave those in there and not think about it. Alright, so now the other thing that you can do right here is you can let's take some of this stuff. Nope, let's not use that. Let's use the red, the dry red stuff, okay? Now see what I'm doing right here now? Alright, I'm going to put some of that on there. Now, what I'm going to do with this knife is I'm going to feel how it feels on just a piece of wood. Okay, I know how that feels. Now I'm going to feel here, and I can feel something happening. That's the way that you can really tell if you're going to do some good. Now that, you'll be very, very surprised. I don't know why people don't do this, but you'll be very, very surprised with what this does right here. That is so sharp. And see when it starts getting kind of black like that? Let's put you a little bit more on there. But that is stropping with hardwood. A lot of people don't know you can do that, but you can. It's a very, very good option. Let's see if I can cut this on. You can barely see that shiny edge. Now, as far as seeing edges, I want to show you something else here. If you happen to have an old microscope around, now I tried earlier to look through this thing with the camera. It just wasn't possible. But what you want to do is whenever you're trying these different compounds for stropping, what you want to do is you want to get you a microscope that has a light. And what you want to do is you want to hold the blade under here and look in it and see if you can see it. You want to move it around. Now I can see that edge perfectly. Now I tried to get the camera to look into the top here, but I couldn't see it. So you'll just have to take my word for it. You'll have to use the lowest setting on it. You know, it's got these longer ones that get you down closer. I believe that is a 80X. Alright. So, anyway, that's it. Because you've got two different settings on it depending on how this is. So, instead of using the 160, you want to use the 80. And it just really brings in, really brings in that edge of that knife. That's something I've been experimenting with here lately. So, let's try something else with this piece of wood here now. Let's flip this thing around. Get it right here where you can see what I'm doing. Let's clamp this down. Now I want to try something. Now most of my knives have decent edges. Alright, so let's try this here now. This is my Condor Mini Bush Loader. Alright, that ain't got much of an edge on it. So let's put a little bit of polish on this piece of hardwood here. And let's see what this does. I know people are going to think I'm insane for doing this. Leather does good, but hardwood sometimes in some cases does better. So you'll just have to experiment with, you know, cutting paper and strop things and then look through your microscope and see what it actually does to the edge. That's what I'm going to do. Now see, I can really feel that sliding across it. There ain't hardly any, there's almost no resistance to it. So I'm not really stropping because there's not much abrasive there. It's more like I'm polishing. Now if I was stropping on something soft, I wouldn't want to put a lot of pressure on it. But this way I can. Now see, the wood is turning black because I am pushing the polishing compound into the wood. Now I could polish like this. I could do probably 50 or 60 strokes on it. And since it's not an abrasive, since it's a polish, it would be wonderful. But let's see what that did. I didn't count the strokes. Let's see if it'll cut the paper any better. Yeah, it's a little better. No, still not cutting paper. So let's go a little bit more with it. It did a little bit better, but like I said, with the polish, there's not as much abrasive in it. Let's see what that did. Yeah, it's still tearing. Let's turn this thing around and use it on this red side here. See what that does. Put a little more of this red on there. I'm gonna wipe some of this stuff off. Yeah, and I see it's going a lot slower. I can feel the I can feel that abrasive. Because some people say that when they strop, they use, some say that they use one of these sticks like this buffing compound. And then some people say that they use the paste. But there's a difference. When you have to be able to feel, as the knife's dragging across it, is there abrasive or is there not abrasive? And that's the difference between polishing and stropping. So let's see if it's any better. Yeah, I can feel it cutting a little bit better. Yeah. That tore that time. It's a slow process. It's a very slow process, but this does work. And you can experiment some with it yourself. Alright, now as far as stropping a machete, it's something that I almost never do. But if I do strop a machete, let's use this. Put some of that on there. It's got a little bit coarser abrasive. The only reason that I would ever strop a machete is from here to here is your chopping area. But from here to here, if you had to, you could use that for carving. You could use that for you know, carving, making a feather stick. See, that's not very sharp right there. So what I would do is, if I wanted to do that, is I would strop just that section. Now I'm sure most of you would be like, well, why don't you just go ahead and strop the whole blade? Well, I probably could, but I don't know. It just seems like with the chopper, that the edge just doesn't, it rolls quicker than it gets dulled if it's too polished. Alright, so I polished that up a little bit. Just that little bit made it to where it was a little bit better. Just a little bit better. And it's kind of hard to do that. You can see where the compound's building up on the blade right here. But it's kind of hard to do that. I have stropped an entire machete before. I usually don't do it though, because like I said, these are choppers, they're not slicers. And I can still feel the abrasive on it. When this thing gets to where it just slides across this, then that means that you're starting to clog up. Now see, that's a little bit better. If you had to, you can make a feather stick with it. But I much prefer a knife. Knife will do so much better. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with you, and there might have been some things that I forgot about, but But that's the basics of stropping right there. And some of it takes a lot of time, and some of it takes a little time, and it depends on the blade, the condition of the blade that you're starting with. Uh, but that's some of the things on stropping. Another thing, like I said, if you have to, when you're out in the woods, you're camping, you can pull your belt off and tie your belt to a tree, smear some toothpaste on, and strop with it. It makes a mess and makes your belt stink, but it works. Or that's something you could do at home. But any of these chrome polishes or stainless steel polish, silverware polish, the things for polishing mag wheels on cars, they work. Cut out a piece of an old leather boot, you know, or an old leather belt. If you have to, try a piece of hardwood. Get some of those buffing supplies. That company Eastwood, the Eastwood company, they make automotive type stuff. This is Tripoli. This little box here came from Sears years and years ago with all these different compounds. Try them. Another thing you can do is that inside your box of stones, the oil down at the bottom that has the slurry mixed in, dip your finger in it and pull it out and rub it around on your leather or your wood. That is a very, very minor abrasive, because like this, for example, is a very, very minute oily slurry of India stones. That's another thing you can do. Just use your imagination and then cut paper as you go, or better yet, you know, get you a microscope and look at the blade underneath it. That's killer looking at it. I fooled around with the camera and tried to get it to look inside there, and it just wasn't possible. So you just have to take my word for it. But you can get them things. I guess they still sell them new, or you can get them at like yard sales or Goodwill or whatever, you know. But anyway, another thing you can do with that thing too is if you've got some wood and you're feathering it, and some feathers and some don't, you can look at the wood grain under the microscope too, and it'll tell you a few things in the future of what you can look for. So anyway, I got some shelters that I'm building. Hopefully I'll get them all sewn up. I got a whole bunch of fabric, a bunch of ripstock fabric, real tree hardwood camo, woodland camo. I got some more reflective stuff that's not reflective. It's called Marvel Seal. And it's going to be in an upcoming video. And it's pretty cool because you know how bushcrafters will build like a log wall as a fire reflector. That's okay, it'll block the wind, but it doesn't really reflect heat back to you. Well, I'm building a reflector that's portable, and it's reflective on one side and camo on the other side, and it literally, not only does it block the wind, but it reflects the heat back to you. Because, you know, all these other people, they're building these permanent shelters, and I'm not. I'm in one day and out the next, you know, one nighter. So it's good to have these portable things like that. It doesn't take forever to set up. So, I hope y'all have a happy new year. Hopefully things, you know, I'm going to get back to schedule to where I can start building on these shelters and things that I've been working on and creating. And we'll get back out in the woods, hopefully more in 2019 than we did in 2018. That's what I'm wanting to do. Hope you learned something. I hope you had fun. Strop your knives, experiment, try different things, see what works. These are the things that works with me. Think outside the box, and I shall see you in the next one.